Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of The Courage to be Disliked. The Japanese phenomenon that shows you how to change your life and achieve real happiness. By Ichiro Kishimi. Maybe it's time for a fresh set of eyes, after all? Is it possible that we should focus more on living for ourselves and less on others? The Courage to be Disliked is a best-selling book that tells us to stop living for others and start living for ourselves instead. Adlerian psychology is used to teach us how to be unapologetically honest when it comes to making real, lasting changes. It takes courage to be the person we want to be, and the quest to discover our true selves is an ongoing one. To achieve self-actualization, we need to let go of the baggage of our past. We must also have the courage to change without fearing what might happen. Over 3.5 million copies of The Courage to be Disliked have been sold, making Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga household names in Asia. For those who want to take more control of their lives and be more active, this book explains how Adlerian philosophy can be applied in the modern world. In the West, mental health has been a taboo subject until recently. An increasing number of people are talking about mental health and depression, which was previously viewed as taboo. In The Courage to be Disliked, a counter-approach to the dominant Freudian and Jungian psychoanalytical models is groundbreaking. Our discussion of Alfred Adler's century-old theories on mental health will conclude here. The book's structure is based on a Socratic dialogue, which makes it easy to understand the theories and arguments presented. A fascinating and thought-provoking look at human agency and self-determination is the end result of this investigation. The ability to make a difference. Determinism is the worldview that most of us have been exposed to from an early age. To us, it seems like we have no choice but to stay in the person that we've always known ourselves to be. That being said, we have the ability to transform ourselves at any point in our lives. While our personalities may appear to be predetermined, this is not the case. Although our past influences us, it isn't the only factor that shapes our personality. Victims are often viewed as products of their past, and as a result, we automatically assume that the present is connected to the past. Pop psychology, which asserts that our actions are based on trauma, reinforces our cause and effect mentality and thus shapes the way we perceive the world. Because of their current behavior and upbringing, we make assumptions about how children will grow up. Psychological issues, it's generally accepted, have a strong historical component. According to Adler, our past doesn't have to dictate our present or future, we have the power to break free of it. For the sake of clarity, let us say that our past experiences and trauma aren't dictating our present behavior. It's important to keep in mind that what we feel in the here and now is influenced by a variety of factors. There isn't a single solution to every problem. It's not a one-size-fits-all scenario when it comes to our anxieties and problems. The reasons for our feelings and actions are constantly changing, and we have the ability to alter our behavior and actions in the course of our daily lives. We're content with the way things are. What kind of attitude do you have toward change? The fact that so many of us are accustomed to the way things are makes it difficult to embrace a new way of doing things. Changing our point of view takes too much effort, so we don't do it. We've been taught to think in terms of polar opposites. People tell us there's good and bad, hot and cold, light and dark, but we don't believe it. We can even be classified as dog people or cat people, or as glass half full or glass half empty people. The world appears black and white to us. As a matter of fact, the world isn't simply black and white. Despite the fact that we are aware that the world is not black and white, we tend to have a very fixed view of the world. Rather than being neatly categorized, humans are more complex than that. Instead of referring to personality traits, Adlerians believe that we should use the term lifestyle. Context and environment play an important role in how we perceive the world and ourselves, which is why our way of life reflects this. After about the age of 10, our worldviews begin to form as a result of both positive and negative experiences. It's common for us to assume that people who are negative are actively trying to improve their situation. But Adler says that if these people truly wanted happiness, they'd change their ways. He claims that people are drawn to familiarity because it provides a sense of security. Our reluctance to accept new ideas stems from this. It is natural for us to avoid new experiences because we are afraid of the unknown. The admonition is that we must be brave enough to face the unknown and accept failure. Since no one is perfect, why do we fight imperfection so much? Is it really necessary to strive for perfection when you know you can't? What would you change about yourself if you could? Were you unable to settle on a single thing to focus on? Too often, we let our flaws, no matter how small, take center stage in our lives. Our flaws can be crippling and spread to every aspect of our lives. Because we believe that our flaws are the source of our unhappiness, we actively pursue the goal of fixing ourselves. However, no matter how hard we try to fix the minor flaws, they won't be enough to solve the more serious problems. Other people can only see our insecurities if we make a big deal out of them. What other people see is what we see when we focus on the negative. You'll be judged for your appearance if you isolate yourself because you're afraid of people's opinions. However, we will not be judged for the reasons we expect. We'll be judged for deliberately separating ourselves from others. Brené Brown argues in Daring Greatly that true courage comes from accepting one's own vulnerability and flaws. Compare and contrast is a waste of time. We all wish we were someone else at one point or another. As a result, we live in a highly competitive environment. With the rise of social media, it's more difficult than ever to keep up with the Joneses. Some people believe that they are never enough. We need to reevaluate our beliefs about competition and change our mindsets. Competition in and of itself is not a bad thing. We progress and achieve our goals through competition. Competition, on the other hand, has a dark side. Stress and anxiety are a result of focusing on winning all the time and striving to be the best. Taking part in competition forces us to choose between winning or losing. We've learned that the only way to learn and grow is through failure, and we've come to accept that losing makes us a failure. So one way to keep our competitive nature in check is to set ourselves attainable goals. It all boils down to being honest with ourselves about our goals in life. Because many successful people aren't happy, success isn't an accurate indicator of happiness. The key is to recognize that when we're competitive, we're focused on ourselves and not on others. It's time to change our mindset and realize that others aren't constantly judging us or putting us down. Most of the time, it's our own apprehensions about how other people perceive us that keep us from fully participating in life's experiences. You are the only one who can decide what is best for you. To be truly free, we must be able to make our own decisions and live our lives according to them. Count the number of times you've done something because you wanted the approval of others. At some point in our lives, we've all succumbed to the allure of getting others' approval. Rather than focusing on what others think, our authors recommend that we focus on what we think about ourselves. Instead of feeling obligated to do something, we should do it because we want to. We should not do things for the sake of duty or loyalty, because doing so results in us sacrificing our own happiness for the sake of others. For example, why did you decide to pursue a certain career or life path? It's common for us to make these decisions based on social contexts, and the influence of our families, peers, and friends is significant. We must be ready to let others down when they have high hopes in us. The question for those at the back of the room is, are you prepared to disappoint your family, peers and friends? It may be difficult to accept. There should be an unequivocal yes to this question. Because of your values and beliefs, it is important to choose how to live your life. Each of us must live in accordance with the principles that guide our personal values. We advise against getting too involved in the lives of others. We're not here to judge or criticize others, and when we do, it often leads to a backlash. An excellent example of this can be found in the field of schooling. Many of us have been taught that education is all about rewards and penalties. Good behavior is rewarded, and bad behavior is punished in this binary system. As a result of this value system, one is shamed or praised at all times. They use the example of students who get low grades in school as a case study. Imposing more restrictions is a common first response, but this rarely resolves the issue at hand. Adding stress to a situation only makes matters worse. Individual accountability is what we should be promoting instead. Rather than meddling, this encourages children to take responsibility for their own education. A generation of children who can learn on their own and with maturity will result from this method, which is more difficult than simply applying pressure. When you're controlling, you're trying to impose your will on others, but when you're supportive, you're showing that you have their best interests at heart. To put it simply, each and every one of us is a unique individual with our own thoughts, feelings, and desires. Empathy is more important than control, and we should all adopt this policy. The art of controlling one's self-awareness. No one has more worth than another, we are all equal in the eyes of God. We often feel isolated and anxious because we don't know where we fit in, and we tend to isolate ourselves. That we're all part of a global community, and that we're not alone, is what our authors argue. A global community isn't just about being connected to other people, it's also about having an impact on the world. We must broaden our perspective to include the entire planet and the ways in which we interact with it. A greater sense of purpose requires us to work for the greater good, not just for ourselves. The more we care about the world, the more valuable we become as global citizens. Ignoring our place in the universe for so long has had no positive effect on our psyche. We're more likely to see the big picture and discover a deeper meaning when we're taught to practice generosity and reciprocity. We owe the world we live in more than we owe ourselves. Find out how you can make a positive difference in the world by digging deep. In the end, in order to be happy, we must change our perspective on life. The most important takeaway is that we must become self-sufficient and stop comparing ourselves to others. It's time to stop worrying about what others think and focus on what we can do to make a difference in our community. When we get out of bed each morning, we should ask ourselves, what can I do to improve the world? We no longer believe that the world revolves around us if we begin each day by assessing our impact on the world. But what's more important is that we all understand how interconnected the world is and how each of us can contribute equally. For the final step, we must give up any notion that we are a victim of our circumstances or that others have a better life than we do. Living in the present is essential if we are to get the most out of life. Everyone is going through something, so pay attention to those around you. However, while there will always be a few mean-spirited individuals, the vast majority of human beings are not like that. So step out of your comfort zone, take a risk, and live your life in accordance with your truest self. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.